It's Wednesday, April 29th, 2020. Dow Jones closes up 532 points today, while US GDP is plunging. Millions of Americans go jobless, manufacturing collapsing, consumption falling off of a cliff, everyone needing a bailout, whether that's household or corporations or everything in between. We're sitting here in a frozen economy, yet the Dow Jones closes up 532 points. The stock market is surging yet again. People ask, how can this be? There's one answer and one answer only. We watched the Fed come back out today and reassure these markets, pledging commitment to these markets, that they will do whatever necessary to keep these markets propped up. So much for the free market. So as we continue to watch these magic tricks and all the criminality taking place on Wall Street, as the US economy gets deeper into a depression, it never ceases to amaze me, the people that come out and tell me, I'm making people worry. I'm being too negative. Don't worry, God's going to take care of all this. And that brings me to a quote that most of you have heard, and I want to read this to you. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing, Edmund Burke. And it just amazes me how people can just stand by because they don't want to face reality, and they don't want you to face reality. These people are the same people who write in and say that you're not smart enough to make your own decisions. You're not qualified to make your own decisions. These people, these trolls, believe that they're smarter than you and I. But it amazes me that they believe they're looking out for you, that you can't make your own individual opinion. You're just not smart enough. You're not as smart as these guys. You know, these are the same people in the churches today who stand by and do nothing. They're not out there feeding the homeless. They're not out there preaching the message. They're not out there warning people that if they don't snap out of it, they don't start getting right with God, there's a place called hell that they're going to burn for eternity. And see, the churches today are just like these people. They don't want to give you the message. They don't want to give you the truth because it might be too scary. It might make you worry. And when you worry, you start thinking. You start thinking about consequences. And when you start worrying and thinking about consequences, you might have to make some big decisions. And you know, the devil doesn't want you to worry. He doesn't want you to think. He doesn't want you to even think about consequences, just like these people. They want to think for you. They're smarter than you. You don't need to worry about these type of videos. You don't need to worry about these type of messages. You don't need to think for yourself. Don't worry about it. God's going to take care of it. You know, I believe God gave all of us a brain, and I think God put many of us here to expose darkness, to expose what is real and what is not, to expose threats, you know, things that the churches should be doing that they don't do today. I see huge economic threats. I see spiritual threats that are taking place right here in America. And I believe I would be doing a disservice to God, and I would be doing a disservice to my country and all of you if I didn't step up today, as I do on a daily basis, and get this message out. I'm not preaching to anybody. I'm far from a preacher. But the reality of it is, this country is in enormous trouble financially and spiritually. And if we don't snap out of it here real quick, we're going to lose the greatest country on planet Earth. And that's why I make these messages. So let's talk about some reality today. Here's an article on The Hedge. Survey finds 50 million Americans have lost their job in the past 6 weeks. For every 10 people who have successfully filed for unemployment claims, 3 or 4 people have been unable to register, and another 2 people have not even tried to apply yet. So the numbers that we're getting are not even the real numbers, because there are so many people still trying to apply, so many people stuck in the pipeline, people who haven't even tried yet. Clogged phone lines, downed websites. State governments are overwhelmed with the numbers. It's a shame that people work so hard and they pay into their unemployment and when they need it, it's not even there. But what's really shocking here is we're talking tomorrow about seeing 30 million jobless people in 6 weeks. That number now, we're being told in reality, is going to be around 50 million people. Think about that. But I guess we should just stand by, not talk about this. There shouldn't be any concern. We'll just let God sort it out. Remember, God gave you free will. He gave you a brain. Just think about how Noah felt back in the day when he told people the flood was coming to prepare, and he built this ark for 100 years, and people made fun of him and called him names. And right now it is raining and people are still denying the truth. So, there's only so much we can do. Some people will eventually open their eyes and ears, and some never will. And that's just the way it is. But I'm going to continue to try to wake up as many people as I can, because I read the comments. Many, many people, because of your comments, have woken up. Because of these videos, your comments, your discussions down below, many people I've read have woken up or have become complacent and rewoken. And that's just an incredible thing. Here's an article on CNBC. Pending home sales tank nearly 21% in March, but realtors claim prices will hold up. I can tell you that is not going to happen. The average rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage fell to a new low of 3.43%. So about 3.4% as of last week. No matter how low they push rates down, if you don't have a job, if your wages are being cut, if your hours are being cut, it doesn't matter what the rate is on a mortgage, because you are not going to be able to afford, whether it's 1% or 2% or 3.4%. The average American is not going to afford a mortgage if he or her does not have a job. Ask yourself, how does a service-based economy support a healthy real estate market? 70% of our GDP is made up of the service industry. And when you look at half this country making less than $32,000, $33,000 before taxes, how in the world do we even have a real estate market right now? Well, it's hedge funds, it's investment money, buying these houses so the average American can become a renter. We're renting cars called leases, we're renting houses, we're renting clothes. We're renting everything now because the average American cannot afford to buy. And that's why the average American has no savings, no assets, has no net worth. This is where it's all heading. Again, we're going to have two asset classes. The very top, the aristocrats, and nothing in between, all the way to the very bottom, where you're going to have the peasants and serfs renting cars, renting houses from the rich. Another article today, we're about to lose everything. Over-leveraged Airbnb superhosts. I've said time after time, the sales are coming, and there's going to be huge sales in real estate. Any of these real estate agents that are telling you it's a good time to buy, they are lying to you. They're telling you prices are going to soar, that it's going to be an incredible summer. They are lying to you. Look, just do your own homework, connect the dots here. Look at these statistics, look at this economy right now, and look where it's all going. And anybody that thinks real estate is going to surge or go up anytime soon, they are in need of serious mental help. Over-leveraged Airbnb superhosts who own portfolios of rental properties built on debt are now starting to blow up. They have become incomeless for months and unable to service their mortgage debt. 1/3 of Airbnb's United States hosts have more than 24 properties. People have borrowed enormous amounts of money to buy properties, furnish these properties, and now they're borrowing more money to hang on. Because what's happening is nobody's traveling. Tons of Airbnb properties out here in Palm Springs and Palm Desert and Rancho Mirage. Nobody's getting in their car and driving. Nobody's getting on an airplane. Nobody is traveling. And now People's pocketbooks are being very affected by this collapse. So they're not taking the weekend trip. They're not taking the 1 week trips. They're just not going anywhere. They're tightening up their wallets. The credit cards are getting tapped out. And now these people who financed all these properties with massive amounts of debt, hoping that you and I would go rent one of these properties for a weekend or for a week, we're not going. People are too scared to go out or too broke to go out, and these people are going to be in big trouble. The sales are coming. Many of these super hosts with Airbnb are panicking as they are a month or two away from foreclosure. These people are now becoming the panic sellers. So who might be the next big seller that could ruin the real estate market? Maybe it's Airbnb superhosts who might need to get liquid very, very quickly. This is how fast things can turn. And this is what happens when you carry enormous amounts of debt. As soon as there's a rainy day, as soon as there's a slowdown in the economy, if you have 5 or 10 properties that you're renting out and people lose a job, or half those people lose a job, well, if you had 10 properties, now you have 5 with nobody living in those properties. Now you're responsible to make the payment. You're responsible to pay the bank. If you have 10 Airbnb properties and the economy slows down like it has, and nobody's getting in the cars or the airplanes, nobody's calling, you're responsible for the mortgage payment. And so a lot of people are going to learn a very hard lesson here. Here's another article on MarketWatch.com. GDP sinks 4.8% in the first quarter, biggest drop since 2008, and there is worse to come. This is the biggest contraction in 12 years. This is nothing. The U.S. economy is likely to contract by 25% or more in the second quarter. So here's what is happening right now in the U.S. economy. Americans are slashing spending on cars, on clothes, on travel, on eating out, and most other goods and services as millions have lost their jobs. But remember, the Dow Jones was up 532 points today. Wall Street Journal, Hertz bankruptcy imminent. I mean, it's just affecting everything in the economy. Hertz is preparing for a possible bankruptcy filing after it failed to make lease payments. And again, the common denominator here is debt. Debt is a killer, especially in bad times. Hertz has $17 billion worth of debt, which includes $3.7 billion of corporate bonds and loans and $13.4 billion of vehicle-backed notes. Rental car companies, are very connected to the automakers and auto sales because they buy zillions of SUVs and cars and trucks. And now, what kind of ramifications will Hertz and so many of the other rental car companies that are either going to be filing bankruptcy, slowing down their or cutting down their inventory because less people are going to be traveling this summer, right? So they're not going to need as big of an inventory as they usually do. They may hang on to cars longer. Car values are going down when they sell these cars. So rental car companies aren't going to be buying as many new cars from the automakers, and this is going to have a big effect on auto sales. CNBC. Speaking of autos, Ford projects adjusted pre-tax loss of $5 billion in second quarter of 2020. The automaker's total revenue, which includes auto sales and financing, slid 14.9% in the first quarter. Stock market's up today. People are telling you on the television everything's fine, everything's good, nothing to worry about. Ford burned through $2.2 billion in cash during the first quarter. They tapped $15.4 billion last month against 2 existing credit lines. Earlier this month, they sold $8 billion in bonds. First quarter sales fell off of a cliff, 12.5% compared to a year ago. I mean, I don't know how anybody can deny what is happening. It is so obvious. We are we are literally now entering a depression. And I fear that this will be the greatest depression that the world has ever seen. I read this article yesterday, and I saw a video yesterday. Namibia becomes first African nation to export beef to U.S. We are accepting beef from Africa while we are destroying our own. So we're importing lesser quality beef into America while we're destroying U.S. beef. Beef that supports U.S. industries, U.S. farmers, yet we're importing beef from Africa, a lesser quality beef. Comment down below. Look this up. Namibia becomes first African nation to export beef. You'll find articles on this. This was in the International Business Times. This is currently taking place right now while we are destroying pork, beef, and poultry right here in America. Please comment down below. I want to know your thoughts on this. Why do you think this is taking place? Why are we importing beef from another country yet destroying our own? Are you ready for the Great Depression of the 2020s? Michael Snyder. Really good article. I'm going to paraphrase through this article for you. As the economy opens, there will be many restrictions which will stretch out the economic suffering. 100% fact. Look at the states like Nevada, dependent on casinos. The unemployment rate in Nevada right now is near 25%. Texas now dealing with an oil crash. Look to see unemployment surge in the state of Texas. We look at the unemployment numbers in 1933. They peaked at 25%. Expect to see 25% unemployment in America in 2020. Now we have food shortages. The economic dominoes are falling. Every bubble is beginning to burst. You may know people standing in those food lines right now. We may know people who become homeless at some point. Believe it or not, we may have friends that become homeless. You may not even know that this is going to happen to these people, but there are going to be people in America that once had jobs, that once had a house and 2 cars and credit cards and a big screen TV that are going to become homeless. And they may be your friends. They may be my friends. We may have friends right now standing in food lines that we're not even aware of. People watching this video, you may be standing in a food line. At some point, I may be standing in a food line. Nobody is immune to what is coming to America. And this is why I tell every one of you daily to prepare. And I've been saying this for a couple years now because I don't want you standing in a food line. I don't want you unprepared. I don't want to stand in a food line. And this is why I had to make sacrifices years ago to get prepared for what is coming, for this time in U.S. history, to be ready, to be prepared. And for the people out there who ignored the warning signs, who ignored the truth, who just hoped it would all go away, who said, I'm going to just pray to God and God will handle it. Remember, there's a lot of people who prayed to God. There's been a lot of Christians throughout the world who have been slaughtered, who prayed to God every day, okay? So just because you pray to God doesn't mean you're going to escape the reckoning that's coming to America. This is why God is waking you up. He's waking me up. He's separating the wheat and the chaff right now, ladies and gentlemen. He's opening up your mind, your brain, your heart, and your soul to prepare for what's coming. And you know what's coming. You are not prepared for this depression if you could not face the truth, if you could not face reality. You are not prepared for this depression if you're one of these people who just hoped all this would go away, because all this is not going away.